There are many times in my life where I have felt very rejected, whether that is in love, in failed attempts at success, or in communities that have fallen apart around me. And recently, I had a pretty intense conversation with someone about how they felt rejected from their family, and their suffering came mostly from this intense feeling of being completely alone. I think that's honestly a reason why most people stay in bad relationships. And I also think it's a reason why a lot of people are very religious. I'm sure it's comforting to think that no matter how alone you are, there's some omniscient being always there watching over you, keeping you safe. You know, a God that loves you, that did all of these things in sacrifice for you. You know, Jesus loves you. Obviously, I recognize, and I'm sure a lot of you recognize, that there are a lot of negative implications that also come from whatever deity somebody might choose to feel a connection to. But nonetheless, it does comfort a lot of people. And I think fear of death, and even more than that, fear of being alone, is the driving force. But there's a saying, I'm sure most of you have heard it, that you're born alone and you will die alone. What a profoundly stupid saying. I mean, think about it. You were not born alone. You came out of a vagina. There was biologically another human required to be there at your birth. I mean, who knows with science, maybe one day we'll progress to the point where we can be created in tubes, but until then, right now, it's physiologically pretty important for another human to be there. Now, the part where we die alone, I mean, yeah, sure, that could be true. I don't know. Everyone's different. And we do live a decent amount of our life alone, but we don't have to. Now, I think the important lesson in that is to be independent, to be self-sufficient, to generate your happiness on your own instead of being reliant on others to fill some kind of void in your soul to make you happy. And this was a way that I was for a long time. I felt worthless on my own, but I feel like I have found that it's a peaceful feeling to feel like you're content on your own and that you don't need anybody. You don't need anybody to take care of you. You don't need anybody to feel complete because you yourself are your own person, and everybody arrives to this conclusion at a different time in their life. But I feel like finally I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I feel good with where I'm at in my life and who I am, and I know that I don't need anyone. But at the same time, I think it's important to also acknowledge that sometimes we are happier when we can share our life experiences with someone, whether that be in a relationship romantically, or having a close-knit family, or having friends that you love, or even being a part of a community of some kind. About 7 years ago, I went through the most difficult time in my life that I've ever experienced to this day. And I was so stubborn and strong-willed at the time, and I didn't think I needed anybody. I didn't think I needed to talk to anyone. I was like, you know what? I'm fine. I can just bottle all of this shit up inside and not talk to anyone, and I'll be okay. And I mean, I was lucky enough that I am okay now, but I was so miserable, and I put myself through so much unnecessary suffering because I was too proud to ask for help or to tell anybody what was going wrong, because I felt like in more than one sense, I would be admitting failure in so many different parts of my life, and I couldn't do it. Things have obviously changed now. I talk to my family, I talk to my friends, I talk to the internet, which some people might think is oversharing, but for me, it's pretty cathartic. And I also have a therapist with BetterHelp that I've told you guys about a few times. I'm not really great at traditional therapy. I've tried it before and it didn't work for me. I just felt uncomfortable. And that's not to say that it's not the right choice for other people. I'm sure, you know, for some people it's great. Actually, I know a lot of people that go to a therapist and it's changed their life. But for me personally, I feel a lot more at ease with therapy online, where I can just pick up my phone at any time and text her and be like, hey, crisis, and she's like, it's okay, don't freak out. Only less in a Cartman voice. I found my therapist on BetterHelp, and I chose for her to be non-religious because that's one of the things I experienced whenever I would go to therapists before, is they'd be trying to comfort me in some way or another by saying, God loves you, God watches over you, but you know, I'm an atheist, and that just is frustrating for me because in my head, I'm like, no, there's not. You know, I feel even more alone when you try to convince me of a bunch of stuff that I don't even think is real. So this is a way better fit. If someone tries to start comforting me with Jesus, I'm out. It's also way cheaper than going to an actual therapist. So if you guys want to check it out, my personal link is betterhelp.com/Jaclyn. Anyway, that's one tool that I've used to help me through my issues, and Lord knows I got them. See what I did there? And speaking of religion, I was just at a convention in Milwaukee called MythCon, and I'll be posting more about that later, explaining what it really is. But I was on a panel about how politics has put a divide in the atheist community, in the skeptic community, and there was a lot of debate on whether or not such a community even exists, or whether one is even necessary. I'd like to argue that it is important to a lot of people. And on my panel was a friend of mine, David Smalley, and he mentioned that a lot of people at that convention, and a lot of people that are atheists now, weren't so fortunate to grow up in a family that is secular. Most of us had a very religious upbringing. And with that upbringing comes a sense of community within your church. And that is something that people who are non-religious are lacking. And maybe they don't need that. But for me personally, I did enjoy that sense of community that I got. And it just makes you feel like comforted by others that think similarly to you. It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger. And it really hit home with me because after this panel, I was out meeting people and hanging out, and a lot of good people showed up to this. And one girl came up to me and I talked to her for like 20 minutes, which was crazy because I was running around all day and there were lots of people there, but I felt like I got into a pretty deep conversation with this one individual. And she just told me all about her religious upbringing and how when she finally had the courage to come out to her family, they completely rejected her. And that's a thing that she kept saying to me over and over again. And I could see the heartbreak in her eyes. She's like, I feel so rejected. I feel so rejected. I feel so alone. My family doesn't want me anymore because of the way that I think, because I'm different. And I feel so rejected by everyone that I love. And I hugged her and I felt so bad because I don't completely relate. Like, I did experience a lot of, I guess I would say it's more comparable to just uncomfortable situations. I did have a couple of fights with my family whenever I told them that I wasn't religious like they were anymore. But they got over it relatively quickly, and now we're all very close and they're very supportive. And that's not a luxury that everyone has, and this girl didn't have that. And she was struggling additionally because she leans more conservative and is still an atheist. And not only did she get that rejection from her family, but she went to this convention and felt like she was receiving a lot of rejection from others too, because she wasn't of the right political party to be a part of this community, which I thought was insane. And it's exactly why I was saying the things that I was saying on my panel about how anyone can be a part of this. People are so obsessed with labels and putting people in boxes and coming up with different categories and things for people, and it's the most divisive thing that we can do. We're all together here, right? We're all trying to get through all of our shit. Everyone has a different struggle. And I sound so naive and idealistic right now, but I wish we could all honestly just be nicer to each other. It is true that you have to learn to love yourself first. You have to learn to accept yourself first, because the biggest rejection you could ever get in your life is from you. I know it's not easy. Trust me, I know it's super difficult, especially whenever you're facing a lot of things. And this is life, right? Life's a bitch. We're all facing a lot of things all the time, but you have to kind of push through that and try to find the good. There's got to be things that you find in your life that you can be positive about and thankful for. And those are the things that you need to focus on. Whether it's talking to friends or using an app like BetterHelp to get therapy, or going to a therapist of some kind, or going to a convention, or finding a community online of people that support you. Like, one of the biggest things I did for myself 7 years ago when I was going through all that was to start my YouTube channel. Like, this has been therapy for me in so many different ways. And when I went to MythCon, that was great too, because it reminded me that, you know, there are so many people out there that share very similar struggles to me. And although it doesn't make me feel any better about the actual problems that I'm going through, like, those still suck, but it does, I don't know, it is cathartic. It is a little bit comforting to know that you're not alone and that there's so many people that are right there with you. And I want to end on something super corny, but I am positive and thankful for everyone out there watching me right now. Like, I know I don't know everyone individually, but It's so great whenever I go to conventions like MythCon or Playlist Live or, VidCon or anything, and I get to meet people and put a face to different usernames that I see all the time and just meet different people, because it reminds you that there are a lot of people out there that are sweet and kind and loving and supportive, and there is some kind of community out there. In the comments, I'll read all the comments. Be nice to each other. Leave a comment. Everyone say something nice to someone else in the comments. Let's just be super corny. Whether you've been rejected by one person, a group of people, or an entire community, there's always going to be someone else. There's always going to be another group, a new community that's more accepting, that relates to you. So find that, and I promise it will make you a lot happier, because like I said, we're all on this rock together. So let's be nice.